We're going to continue to look at how trade influenced the development of the Arab Empire and how it helped facilitate the spread of Islam and a bunch of other really important technologies today by looking at the Indian Ocean Trade Network. But first, let's have a look at this map of Asia on the right-hand side of this slide. If you'll remember from Unit 2, the Silk Roads used to connect China all the way to the Mediterranean, going all the way to the Roman Empire across Central Asia. When the classical empires collapsed, the protection of these trade routes collapsed with them. And so trade along these Silk Roads fizzled out, not only because there was not very much protection, but also because they're really hard to cross. That doesn't mean that long distance trade in this region ended entirely, however. It shifted to a new primary focus, and that new primary focus was in the Indian Ocean. Indian Ocean trade was the primary way that China and Southeast Asia and India and the Arabian Peninsula and Eastern Africa interacted during the post-classical period. Just spend some time on the map and consider what it would take to trade along vast, dark, unknown oceans to this extent. Remember, anytime we talk about trade, we're talking about the spread of material goods, resources, but also religion, ideas, technology, culture, and diseases. Remember that trade requires some sort of stable political context, because if you're going to take a lot of valuable stuff from one place to another, it's nice to not get robbed along the way. And trade like this often results in social progress that comes with the free exchange of ideas. You get a technological idea from one place and improve on it, suddenly your society's better. And of course, more money. And money funds not only a better standard of living, but also more knowledge, more science, more scholarship, the kind of thing that could lead to a golden age. So, specific to the Indian Ocean trade networks, the kinds of things that diffused include, from Africa, gold, ivory, iron, and slaves. From Arabia, Islam, and the astrolabe. The astrolabe is this cool thing. I'm going to show you a picture on the next slide. But it basically allows you to navigate in the ocean by correctly being able to read astronomy, the stars. When you're in the ocean, you have to picture, like, there are no visible landmarks in any direction. How do you know which way to sail? Consider the costs of sailing in the wrong direction. When you get the development of the astrolabe, which allows you to know which way you're going, that unlocks a whole series of possibilities that will have huge historical effects, not just during this time period, but also later on, specifically when some dude named Columbus tries to get to India and hits the Americas instead. Okay, so that's Arabia. From India, we get the diffusion of spices, very important, but also the concept of zero, fascinating. And from China, we get the diffusion of porcelain, gunpowder, the compass, and printing on paper. Consider the importance of these technologies. What difference would it have made in history if gunpowder had remained only in China? Or the compass, another tool that allows you to know which way you're going when you can't see anything visible that can help you decide. Printing also. If you can print books, you can copy ideas fast and spread them fast, and they're harder to control. And that kind of thing has huge historical implications. So, for the Indian Ocean trade networks, here are your notes. In the post-classical era, long-distance trade shifted to the Indian Ocean region. This is because when the classical empires like Rome and the Han Dynasty and the Gupta Dynasty fell, a lack of protection along land-based trade routes discouraged that kind of trade. It's a lot easier to rob somebody on land-based trade than it is on water-based trade. Land-based trade will start up again a little bit later on in this time period with the rise of the Mongol Empire that protects the Silk Roads. But until then, the focus is in the Indian Ocean. This trade was possible partly because monsoon winds made Indian Ocean region predictable and safe. That meant the winds blew sailors predictably in one direction according to one season, and then predictably back when the next season began. It was also possible because of sailing technologies like the astrolabe. There's that picture I promised you. It's a really cool thing. And the compass, which allows you to know north, south, east, and west when you can't tell and when you can't see the sun, helped expand this network. It existed in a limited form during the classical period, but in the post-classical period, it really gets going. The Indian Ocean was the primary means by which people traded and interacted throughout the Middle Ages, aka the post-classical period. Traders from China, Africa, India, and the Arab Empire exchanged ideas and technologies throughout the Indian Ocean region. This allowed cultural diffusion to happen between civilizations that were otherwise separated by big topographical features, kind of like how the Himalayas separate India and China, or how oceans separate Southeast Asia from the continent. Critically, super important for later on, Europe was not a part of this trade route. Europe missed out entirely and remained isolated from all of the wealth and technology that it produced, and from the cultural diffusion that occurred. And think back to that list of things that were diffusing during this time: printing, gunpowder, navigation technologies. Europe missed it all, and that's going to have huge effects. Effects of this amazing network include major technologies like gunpowder, printing, and the compass emerging from China and diffused to other parts of the world, where they will build on those technologies and create even more new things. Second, also critically, Islam spreads from Arabia to Southeast Asia, those islands in Indonesia, for example, along these trade routes, and also to the new port cities like the Swahili city-states that emerged along the east coast of Africa. These cities became rich as trade ports, right? You tax goods in, you tax goods out, boom, you're rich. And this explains how Islam traveled to that region of the world. So here we are on our little tour through Unit 5. Right, we have already explained the rise of Islam and how the religion as an idea spread. We've explained the rise of the Arab Empire and how the borders of that state spread. And now we're going to focus in on the Golden Age part of the story. How did this empire and religion create a golden age of progress and knowledge and learning? And by now you should have most of the big pieces of that puzzle to understand the next lesson. Through these trade networks, Trans-Saharan trade and the Indian Ocean trade, the Arab Empire was given not only money, which can help pay for specialization and scholars. You can pay for people to just spend all of their time studying and trying to make life better if you have enough money. And these trade networks definitely brought that in. But in addition to that, we have huge diffusions of really important technologies like gunpowder, printing, and the compass, and connections to other parts of the world that can help enrich this empire. When you have all of those kinds of different ideas from different cultures sort of swirling around, and you have the money to capitalize on them, good things can happen. Finally, we have the tolerance of the Arab Empire, which helped not only spread Islam, not only strengthen the empire, but also helped all of this long-distance trade happen. If you know that you're not going to be killed for your ideas, you feel safe going to the place and trading there. So traders felt very comfortable in this empire, crisscrossing it, And that's really important for bringing in ideas and money. Similarly, if you're tolerant of the people that you conquer and the people who happen to be walking through your empire, you can benefit from their knowledge and the knowledge of their cultures and use it to your advantage. Because Christians and Jews could keep their religion in the Arab Empire, they weren't resisting the whole time. And they had to pay a tax in order to keep their religion and not convert, but they were allowed to live. And that tax provided additional money for the empire. So next time we'll see what happened with this golden age. And just as a last note, I keep mentioning this idea of tolerance. And it's a little strange this year. Normally I teach Europe first and then the Arab Empire. This year we're doing it in reverse for no reason that I can think of. But anyway, Europe during this time was basically following the opposite trend. It was very Christian, but intolerantly so. It was in the kind of phase where you torture and persecute people who don't fall in line. There was a pitiful economy, almost no long distance trade, and those things go hand in hand too. So for the time period, the Arab Empire really stands out as a place of cultural progress and tolerance and prosperity that will contrast pretty starkly with the European story, which we're going to start next.